What is up, everybody? My name is Joe Sib with my co-host,
Anea Bogue.
and this is Rad Parenting. Thank you so much for joining us today. Super stoked to be here.
As always.
As always. If you're a new listener to the show, welcome to the show. And you heard me say the word stoked. For the old listeners, you know that I am stoked. For everyone else, you're like, wow, what have I got myself into?
Yes.
Today's show, I'm excited about because usually we come in here and I'll bust out a story kind of to lead us into what we're going to talk about. But you and I were just having coffee before the show, as we do, going over our notes, going over everything that we have coming up over the next couple of months. And I don't even think you knew it, but you told me this story that something that happened this weekend to you. Mm-hmm. And I just stopped you when you got done. I go, oh my gosh, we have to do a show right now on this. So you guys, we pulled this all together because I think it's such an important topic. It's dealing with our emotions, and it's really basically dealing what I learned today when you and I were talking is how we handle our emotions in front of our kids.
Right, and how that guides them in terms of what they think they're supposed to do.
And I'm just telling you right now, when you started telling me the story and then we started talking about dealing with our emotions in front of our kids and how we exercise them, I was like, oh my gosh, that is something that like I have to work on constantly. And, my kids are obviously, older. Mm-hmm. They're in the 12 and 15 range. But I really thought this would be a great idea for our families that are joining us that have the younger kids and also for the people that have the teenagers.
For sure.
So Anea, kind of give us the 411 what happened this weekend.
Well, yeah, and I think it is funny, and I hope that our listeners appreciate, like, often we come in here, and it ends up being like our shares about our own personal family ordeals, trials and tribulations that guide the show, which I think is really lovely. So basically, I had a little weekend away up in the mountains, which was much needed, and my little one was with her dad for the weekend, and at some point while they were at my place, I have this beautiful hand-carved buffalo that my dad had given me within the last year. It's not even like I've had it for a long time, but the buffalo's kind of been a big part of my spiritual practice, yada, yada. And my little one tells me on Monday morning as we're getting ready for school that something happened over the weekend and she thought I should know, but she was really concerned that I was going to be very upset. And I was just like, oh, just tell me already. Thinking, it might be something that seemed big to her because she's 8, but it wasn't going to be that big a deal. Well, as it turned out, it was a very big deal because this precious thing that my father, who's, just turned 73 this week, had hand carved for me. It was very, very precious, and that it had been knocked off on my altar and was broken into 3 pieces. Ah. Yes.
Can I ask, repairable?
Well, that's another, and I think it's a really good question. And actually part of the way that so let me just say that, I freaked out. I lost it. And not without consciously, like it would have been way worse had I been in the house by myself, discovered the buffalo was broken. I'm not even sure what I would have done. So I was definitely still aware of like, I don't want inside, it was explosive, but I'm like, I needed an outlet. And so she saw me it was a mix of anger, frustration, and sadness. Those were the 3 emotions, and they were potent. And I finally had to just be like, this is my room. This is my space. That is why I'm constantly telling everybody to please be careful around here because I've got precious things on here. And I just sort of was going off. And then I finally just like, I need you to get out of here right now. I need you to get out of my room. I need a moment. And she was very affected. And I'm aware that I have, when I emote, that it's a force.
I can tell you right now, while you're telling the story, and I've heard it for the second time, like I started to back away, right? Yeah. And when you told me originally, when we were sitting at the table drinking coffee, like I was like, this buffalo head. I want to ask our listeners right now, if anyone knows anything about woodworking, can you just email us, radparenting@gmail.com. Can we fix the buffalo head?
Well, and just to be like, to give you the full like scope of why it was, besides the obvious reasons why it was so intense, because this wooden hand carved buffalo from my dad, I mean, it was a supercharged piece, one, because it came from my dad. I don't know how much longer I'm going to have my dad. But also because it has been part of my spiritual practice practice, it was sort of loaded with other meaning. And I was like, what does this mean? Like, is this a sign? It was just a very, very heavily charged moment. So I pulled myself together, and like 15 minutes later, as we were continuing on with our morning routine, I could see she was still affected by it. And I, on instinct, pulled her aside and I said, look at me. I am sad. I am angry, I am frustrated, and all of those emotions are absolutely appropriate, given that something very, very special and dear to me was broken. It's in pieces. I mean, I can almost cry now talking about it. It was really intense. And I said, but those are my emotions. They are not yours. I am not angry with you. I'm not frustrated. You didn't do it.
Wow, you said all that.
I did.
I love that.
In fact, it was her dad that had knocked it off. And
what was that talk like?
That was
that's a different
another show. But
yeah.
On instinct, I very clearly, and it's interesting because one of my, a woman that works closely with me with Real Girl, who lives up in Northern California, comes and like actually stays with us for 2 to 3 weeks a month to work with me when we have a big project or whatever. And she had heard this exchange. And so I was just in my little bubble with my little one. But after I got her to school and came back to the house, Kimberly said, I was listening to what you said to her, and I hope you realize how important it was for her to see that you were having these big emotions, but for you to also qualify, because it would be natural. We've talked before about parents being the radio tower. Our kids are naturally going to be affected when even just when we feel big emotions, whether we're emoting them in an obvious way or not. But she said, in telling her, she said, I feel like you gave her permission to have her own feelings when something devastating happens and not feel like she has to clam up or tamp that down because she's not supposed to express sadness or frustration or anger or whatever. And so that gave me some really much needed perspective in terms of the parenting piece. And then what this dear friend also came through with is she reminded me of a practice that the Japanese use. It's long, it's been in practice for very many years. And that is that when something precious breaks, instead of you tossing it out like, well, now that it's no longer in its perfect state, we're going to toss it in the trash, you actually use, and the way that they did it is they actually would put gold, silver, or platinum into a lacquer, and they would repair the piece of pottery, whatever the precious whatever piece of pottery, and so that not only was it repaired, but that you could see where the cracks were. And their belief was that there is growth, there is learning, there's so much in the imperfections. So
using that experience to also make that piece of art or whatever it was that broke, that it still continues in your life and it's okay with these cracks.
Exactly. And there's actually value. There's actually beauty in the cracks, that it somehow has changed form, but there's something for us in that. So she mentioned this, of course, sent me a wiki page, which led me to this awesome little video, which I then forwarded to my little one to watch when she got home from school that day. So not only had we had this moment around dealing with big emotions and them being like part of being human and how to hold that and take responsibility for them, because side note, had I gone off on her and allowed my emotions for her to be a punching bag for my emotions, I would have done major damage, and I would have owed her an apology, because that would be the opposite of what I would be trying to model for her, that, well, I was angry, so I just get to vomit that all over you, and you have to hold that. No. In fact, each of us, and it's a part of what we want them to be by the time they're adults, is capable of feeling and taking responsibility for their emotions, not it being an excuse because you're having a bad day to vomit that all over other people and leave it sticking on them.
I got to stop you right there, because what you said is so important, is being responsible for your emotions. No different than being responsible. We're responsible as parents for making sure there's a roof over the head, making sure that the fridge is full, making sure that we're a good role model. Then all of a sudden we get upset. Right. We've all seen ourselves do it, whether it's in the car, someone cuts you off on freeway, something happens in the parking lot of a store. Mm-hmm. You and your spouse get into it. You and your partner get into it. Before you know it, things are said. Well, I was upset. These are the reasons. And it's almost this free pass for, like you're
bad
saying.
Behavior.
And I've never heard it described that way, vomiting all over you. But it really is such a negative experience when you do go off on someone for something they didn't have anything to do with. And in this case, your daughter, not the one that broke the buffalo head.
Yeah.
So when we're dealing with our emotions in front of our kids, can you kind of give me like a step-by-step way that we can kind of use these opportunities to, like, I guess what I'm saying is, for a listener right now, like, okay, I do get upset. My kids have seen me get upset. I don't know if I've ever owned it as much as Anea did right here. I know for me, I'm just fully being transparent here. I have totally blown it the other way, where I have gotten upset about something and vomited all over everybody. And then, you know what, guys, I call it the rupture,
Right.
and then I got to repair it.
Yes.
That was,
as have I.
we've talked
I mean,
about that on
I
the
did
show.
a good job this time, but it's not always the case.
So let's just rewind right now on how we can better handle our emotions. And also, I want to get into when we let our kids know, which would lead into, I'm feeling sad today. Yeah, I am upset today.
Right. So
I'm not having a good day today. Because I know sometimes for me, and I don't know about other parents out there, I sometimes have come from the place of everything's great. PMA, positive mental attitude.
Well,
my daughter said to me, Dad, not everything's great.
Yes.
And I've been like, you're right. Like, it's okay. I'm bummed today.
Yeah. So it's really interesting because
can we do the steps thing kind of first when you have that emotional moment?
Sure.
And then we'll lead into just
okay.
emotions.
So first of all, and it's interesting because what I also told you this morning was it was really a beautiful coincidence that shortly after I had come across this article about how much we have this tendency as parents to make it seem like, no, everything's okay. Like, I'm okay. Like, mommy's never unhappy. Mommy's never angry. Mommy's never sad, because I don't even know what it is we're trying to do. We don't want to make our kids feel unsettled or unsafe or whatever. And I get that. And I think it comes from a really good place, but we're also setting them up to think that that's how they're supposed to be. And that is unhealthy. We can all feel when we start to pack too much down, and it's just waiting for a rupture. It's just waiting for a little crack to come through and probably be much more explosive than it would be if we were honoring those emotions on an ongoing basis. So I think that first and foremost, as always, it's modeling. It's think about right now, as you're listening to the podcast, when you get off the podcast, when you have big emotions, how to date have you been expressing those in front of your kids? Are you explaining to them that having emotions, big ones, little ones, happiness, sadness, anger, whatever, that's part of being human? And that, secondly, our emotions have something to tell us, but they do not define us. Meaning that, and this is one of the things I had read in the article that I really loved, with this whole idea of first of all, being honest with them when you're feeling whatever emotion. And then secondly, reminding them that it's like a weather report, checking in with your kids saying, some days it's rainy. Does it feel rainy inside right now? Is the sun shining?
That's a great analogy.
It is, because one of the things that's really beautiful and powerful about that analogy is what we all know, even a 5-year-old kid knows, that even if it rained for 3, 4, 5, here in SoCal, this year it's a little more normal to see the rain, but generally speaking, we don't see a lot of rain, but they know that it's going to pass. And so instead of having this feeling that oh boy, if I'm really sad right now, that must mean I'm a sad person, or that's the emotion's bigger than I am. There's nothing for me to do with that except be, a slave or imprisoned by this feeling. When in fact, how about if we looked at the sadness in a gentle, open way and said, what do you have to teach me?
I love that.
Where's
I love
this
that.
coming from? Because what we want to do for our kids is ultimately help them to understand that their emotions are signals, they're signposts for us, that if we were having consecutive days of being unhappy in whatever situation, that might mean that there's something that we need to change, and we have the ability as captains of our own ships, as authors of our own stories, to make changes, because although it's impossible to say 24/7, I'm going to be a happy person, that we should all be striving to have some, I would say, significant degree of contentment, or we want to have joy in our lives as frequently as possible. And when it's not there, it's not to be denied or stuffed away. It's to be looked at and say, where's that coming from? So if it's in a relationship, what is it about this particular friendship that maybe isn't working for me? Do I need to make an adjustment? Do I need to ask this person to make an adjustment? In their future, if they're dreading getting up to go to a job day after day, I think it's important for us to tell them that that sadness or that frustration or dread has something to tell us that maybe we're moving in the wrong direction and we need to make a change. So these are all like really potent life skills that we are providing for our kids in terms of navigating their own lives, both in the present, whether they're 3, 10, 13, 20, or in their adult lives when they are dealing with more complex situations.
Do you ever feel that you do not have enough time in the day to do what you're supposed to get done? You're going to work, you're maybe trying to hit the gym, but you forgot that, I got to pick so-and-so up from daycare. I got to get my dad over to his doctor's appointment. I wanted to pick up the house before I left. Wow, check it out. How am I going to get everything done? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, go to care.com. Care.com. Care.com is the world's largest digital marketplace for finding and managing family care. That is right. Family care needs can be unpredictable. You got sick kids, you need someone to stay home. Man, both parents are out there trying to make a living. Your kids get sick. Who's going to stay home? Who's going to miss out on that cash? Now you go to care.com and they'll have someone for you that can look after your kids. Don't stress your life away. Seriously, most working parents worry about their kids every minute of the day. You're more at ease and more focused when you know your kids or your parents or even your pets are well cared for. Best part is this, care.com provides access to a variety of background check options you can purchase to help make sure that you're making the best hiring decision. That's my favorite part right there. They're letting you know there's a million different things for you to check out on the background check options so you know who's going to be there with your kids or with your parents or with your pet taking care of the situation. Care.com. Check it out now. If you go to care.com right now, you ready for this? To save 30% off care.com premium membership, visit care.com/rad parenting when you subscribe, and you're going to get 30% off. Like I said, the world's moving a million miles an hour. You just want to take care of your kids and all the responsibilities. Let care.com help. So with the emotional ways that we deal, the way that we deal with our own emotions in front of our kids, it really can give them the life lessons so that as they get older and they feel these emotions, they have the tools and the ways to deal with them. One of the things I always like to tell my kids when they have moments where they're down or they're sad or they're blue is I always say, live in that moment. As much as we tell everyone, live in the moment of, oh my gosh, we're having the greatest day ever. We're at the beach. The sun is out. Tonight we're doing this.
Make the most of it.
Make the most of it. I do believe, and after hearing what you say, is I feel that it's so important that when you are sad and you are down, and I've said this to my kids sometimes, I'm feeling bummed today because, A, B, and C happened. I'm also quick to tell them, I'm feeling bummed today. And they're like, and my son might say, why? What are you bummed about? And I'll be like, I can tell you why I'm bummed because A, I ate like a lot of pizza last night, and then I went to bed super late, and I can tell that
my body's not happy today.
My body is not stoked right now. And he'll be like, "Really? That can happen?"
Yes.
I'm like, "Absolutely."
Yes.
Like, that's like,
and then when it happens to him, he knows. There's nothing more. There's no more potent teacher than what we show our kids, not what we tell our kids. That factors in, but our kids will most naturally default to what was modeled for them from one day to the next. It will give them permission. It will guide them. It's just such. So once again, it comes back to what is the work that we need to do as human beings who happen to be steering this ship, not only for ourselves, but for our kids, knowing that what they see is what we're going to send them out into the world with.
Why do you think as parents, and I don't want to speak for everybody, I'm speaking for myself, why do we have that need to sometimes not let our kids know that we're sad or let our kids just, how you feel, Dad? Oh, everything's great. Not talking 100% honest. Why do you think there is that need to do that?
I think it comes from a place of wanting to protect our children. Like we think they're not ready to handle it. They might ask questions that I'm not sure how I'm going to answer. I feel like I might fall apart midway, as we often, if we're holding big emotions, the minute we start talking about it, we break down or we get angry all over again. But I think we have to, take the opportunity to say, okay, because it's always okay to say, you know what, I'm kind of having a tough day. And I'd love to tell you a little bit more about it, but I'm still working through that myself. And as soon as I feel like I can explain it to you in a way that'll make sense, I promise you that I'll come back and share with you so that they're not kept in the dark. Because this is the thing, is our kids always know. They can feel when something's up. And usually what I have noticed, not only with my own children, but kids I work with, families that I work with, is the parents will be going through something and they'll talk about their kids being quote unquote unaware that we're having this problem, this money problem, this, whatever problem. But they're suddenly acting out. Well, they're acting out because intuitively they feel like something's off. But the parents are going, oh, no, everything's okay. So now they're short-circuiting because they're like, well, my instincts or my intuition is telling me one thing. And every fiber of my body says something's not quite right with mom or dad or mom and dad. But they're telling me, the people that I trust most to tell me the truth are saying there's nothing wrong. So I guess there's something wrong with me. We don't want that. We want them to trust their instincts. We want them to be in tune with those feelings that are sometimes bigger and clearer than our intellectual capacity to understand something. So it's really important that if your kid comes to you and says, is everything okay? Or you seem sad or you seem upset, don't deny that feeling or that sense of what's going on in your child. Say, you know what, you're absolutely right. I am having a tough day. I'm not ready to talk about it now, but if you'd like to hear more about it, I'll come to you and maybe there's something you could learn from it. Being human in front of your kids is not going to harm them. It is going to help them to also be fully human.
And if you're not human, then you start acting like a robot.
Yes.
And your kids get the wrong impression.
Well, not only the wrong impression, but it can literally be detrimental to their health. Because what we know, and we have increasing research to tell us this, is that in terms of like leading causes of not just heart attacks and other stress related, but cancers that are literally, they manifest because of big emotion that has just been tamped down and without a place to go and have a healthy outlet. It's like you start to implode and it starts to have an impact on the way that cells are manifesting and taking form. So it's really important, like not only in terms of their day-to-day ability to move in a social context in a way that's healthy for themselves and others, but also their physical health can be impacted by not having good tools to manage big emotions.
Man, if that's not enough right there for all of us to take a step back, deal with our emotions in a way that our kids can mirror the way that and have the tools to go on their life without bottling down all of those feelings inside. That right there. That, like, I always know we had a great episode when I don't talk.
Right. Well, there is one thing though that I do want to bring up real quick, because you're a dad, and I think this is in the whole conversation around emotion. I always think it's especially important to speak to the fact that the big damaging thing that we do to boys is we teach them that they are not allowed to have a gamut of emotions, that because they are male, they're supposed to fit into this man box where the only really acceptable emotion to show the world is anger. You're not supposed to show vulnerability, sadness, frustration, being out of control. And I think that for you as a dad, Joe, like I think it's really important, and I know that you do this, around Nate, is to let them see you be a whole human being that has a variety of emotions, because he needs permission.
Yeah, no, I wish we could throw a mic in front of Karen right now, because she'd say, oh yeah, the most emotional person in this house is Joe. But I think that has a lot to do with being a comedian, because as comedians, we're just like, am I acceptable?
Yeah, no, you are a comedian because
yeah. No, but I'm definitely, I've been very fortunate that just my own father and the men in my life were crying, not all the time.
That might be a sign of intense depression.
Yeah. But we've talked about it on the show. I jog and I cry. I cry while I jog. I laugh. Emotions are coming. But I know, though, for a lot of guys out there, and for a lot of guys that are probably listening to the show right now, they're like, I grew up in a household where we didn't cry. I grew up in a household where we didn't tell each other we love each other. Or I grew up in a household where when someone did get upset, that was just the way that it was, and there wasn't any follow-up to it. There was a rupture, and there wasn't a repair. I always use those two words, rupture, repair. And I'll tell you right now, there's ruptures in my life daily, and I do a lot of repairing. I mean, I am a fix-it. I am like, there's a little toolbox with me when I'm around my kids, because I am fixing the ruptures that I have. Not as much, I think, as I used to, because once you kind of learn, and I'll say this for a lot of the dads that are listening right now, I know that some of the stuff that Anea might be saying is like, wow, how would I contain myself if someone, maybe broke something that I like, or if I, had something happen at work and I get so upset, would I be able to have the tools within myself to deal with this rupture in front of my son or daughter and not aim it at them? Because I know a lot of
that's the key.
And I'm just saying, when I first started hearing about that tactic, I was like, it was the equivalent of like, I know I can never slam dunk basketball. Like I know that I'm never going to play for the Lakers. So how would I? It was seriously, it felt that foreign to me.
Right.
And when I wanted to kind of end the circle of not explaining my emotions and just being the typical following the same circle that maybe some of the stuff I was mirroring, the first time I did it was the hardest, but then it's almost like it's muscle memory. Your body starts to feel the charge coming on. You start to feel the things you're going to say coming to the tip of your tongue, and then you stop them and you don't say them, or you maybe don't misdirect that anger at the people around you. And I'm telling you right now, you feel a million times better when you don't misdirect that anger and explain your emotions to the people around you.
Okay, so
I'm telling you guys right now that is, I am the poster boy for that.
So I think that's where, it would be a great place to wrap, is by saying that we are not saying to hold back your emotions.
No.
We're saying this is a big teachable moment that you allow yourself to express your emotions. If it's going to be big and bad and get all over everyone like a bunch of vomit, then you figure out a coping mechanism to be like me saying, I need you to leave my room right now. I could have at that point, here's something I would recommend, picked up a pillow and just screamed into it. So I'm giving my body and my being an outlet it's like throwing up into the toilet instead of throwing up on somebody else.
We have talked about throwing up and vomiting so much. Hey, if you're new to the show, the next show won't be like this.
No, I promise.
Can I suggest one thing that I've done?
Yeah.
Is and just in my house, it's like, hey, I gotta take a walk, guys. No offense.
Exactly.
No offense to anyone in this room right now, but I gotta walk around the block and just chill for a second.
And that is a form of taking responsibility. You are not saying, I'm gonna go stuff my feelings. You're saying, I'm having some big feelings right now, and I'm gonna go walk them off and get myself to a place where I can come back and not be affecting the rest of my house, which is different than just stuffing it down and then letting it come out at a later time in a bigger, badder way.
And also not having that rupture, because you say and do things that you're so bummed about. As much as while you're doing it, momentarily it might feel good. Oh my gosh, the hangover, the aftermath from it is so bad.
And it is not modeling healthy handling of our emotions. And we don't want our kids to have that feeling of like, oh gosh, well, I know how I feel when mom or dad gets mad. So, either they're going to do it by like rote, like just, oh, that's what I do too. Or they're going to shut down and be like, I don't ever want anybody to feel that way.
I'm going to push it down.
That's right.
And then that's where the cancer comes in.
That's right. Exactly.
All right.
All of a sudden we've got cancer.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is a big, important topic. Lots of teachable moments as always. And remember, we always have to do our own work first as parents, because we are human beings who happen to be modeling and guiding for these little people that we've brought into the world, or taken responsibility for growing in the world.
Absolutely. Hey, anyone that wants to hit us up, a question or any comments on today's show, I always love that. Like last week's show was all set up by one of our listeners, and today's show might have opened up a lot of ideas. Like while we were talking, are there any things right now? We're aware. Let's not ignore the pink elephant in the room. With the times, it's very charged out there in the streets right now. A lot of people, maybe kids seeing things in the news, parents talking at the dinner table. We had a dinner party on Saturday night, and of course the topic was the state of affairs that we are in as a country. And maybe some of you guys are like, how do I talk to my kids about A, B, and C?
Right.
I'm wondering, do we maybe have some topics thrown at us and we can kind of, just go through them?
I think it would be really cool to do something like a headlines show. Like
I like that.
Send us, and it doesn't have to be necessarily be a real headline, although there's ample headlines out there right now. But if you as a parent are having your kid come home and say, so-and-so, I heard so-and-so talking about this at school, or they're over your shoulders, you're looking at Facebook, or the news is on and your kid is like, what is that? What's happening? Any of those things, send them our way.
They're stirring up those emotions. And we would love to maybe tackle ways that we can maybe discuss those things.
Exactly. That would be great.
Love it. So all you got to do is email us at radparenting@gmail.com. Once again, radparenting@gmail.com. And we'll take on those questions and anything else you have about the show. Always throw it there. One thing that we're going to do right now, we did it last week, or we've done it for the last couple of weeks, is that if you want a chance to win Anea's book right now. We usually do it through email, but we've been doing this texting thing now. Anea's book, 9 Ways That We Are Screwing Up Our Girls and How We Can Stop. All you got to do right now is text the word parenting to 313131. Text the word parenting to 313131. Doesn't cost any money, and we're going to pick a winner out of there.
Tell us what city you live in.
Yeah. I think
in the text?
The text will ask you what city you live in, and then we will pick someone and send you a book. So text the word parenting to 313131. Any questions? radparenting@gmail.com. My name is Joe Sib.
And Anea Bo.
We're out of here. Late.